beneath the hum of Bristol's Barton Hill in a warm room filled with music, children's laughter, and the smell of spiced food, stories are unfolding. Stories of memory, tradition, and rhythm. This is Community Rhythms, an exploration of family and music among Bristol's East African diaspora. The project is led by Evolve Music in partnership with Bristol City Council. Evolve Music is a southwest-based community music charity dedicated to using music as a tool for positive change.
I think something like this would be really nice. I think I'm going to come to it more often. Music brings people together and food as well, so it's good and anybody can enjoy themselves, whether you're an adult, child, doesn't matter what age range you are.
Music is part of my life, honestly. Before I sleep, every time I'm walking on the road, I was like listening to music as well.
Music makes every kid happy.
So it all started in 2022 when we started running a project called Dad's Rock at Evolve Music, and it's been an incredible experience. Dad's Rock brings dads and male caregivers together with their children to make music, have fun on a Saturday morning and spend some quality time, both with their children and with other dads. And the impact has been really amazing, actually. We've seen dads and children building much stronger bonds together and with each other, with other dads. People feel less isolated, and we've tracked some really significant improvements to dads' mental health. And for the kids, it's been really helpful for their education and development, and also their social skills and emotional regulation. So in 2023, we were approached by Bristol Family Hubs, the programme that's run by Bristol City Council, and we launched 3 new Dad's Rock groups in Southmead, Barton Hill and Hartcliffe. And I think over about 18 months now, we're into that programme, we've reached around 150 dads and their children. But in Barton Hill, there's a very high population of Somali families, and we noticed that despite the sessions being open and free and accessible to everybody, we saw very low levels of engagement for Somali and East African dads. So we want to find out some more. So we spoke to Bristol City Council and we launched a new project called Community Rhythms. And the idea really was quite simple. It was just to listen, to learn, and to build connections within that Somali community. So we had a series of community music events and conversations across the city, and we worked in partnership with Somali families, community workers and community organisations. Whilst at the same time, in order to develop our organisational knowledge, we did a deep dive into sort of Somali, East African culture and politics and history. We looked at music, we looked at family life, we looked at faith and the roles these all play in East African families. So it wasn't just about understanding the barriers, it was about celebrating a rich musical heritage, whilst at the same time trying to tap into the wisdom that exists within that community.
The events were aimed at children, whole families, and involved music, food, play, and games, and lots of conversations about family dynamics, music and religion, music in the home, music and tradition, and family and community rituals. The events also encouraged young children to be creative. They happened on Saturday mornings and tried to work around the community's schedule and other commitments.
The timing was good for us because lots of stuff happened in the morning, but it's just trying to get out of the house. It's too chaotic. So anything like around lunchtime or just after lunch is perfect.
But it's quite free. There's a lot of freedom and independence for the kids to choose what they want. So I think that's really nice for the kids. Yeah. I think it's quite nice for them to play around with the sounds and everything, definitely. I think it's just a way to be creative, to be honest, yeah. There's not a lot of ways for the kids to be creative nowadays, So it just gives them their own thing to do and everything, yeah.
For Somali women, poetry and rhythm have long been a form of connection and resistance. Take Burambur, a poetic percussive dance performed in female-only spaces.
I felt it was really powerful to see the women holding the space. It's the women who are drumming, it's the women who are dancing. And when I saw it, it was the women who were singing. It's I think I saw 2 or 3 drummers, right? And then the way that they would just also between the drummers, the singer, and the dancers, how they would engage. It was really powerful to see, like, okay, this is a space held by the women, for the women.
Somali, we have our own way of dancing and on singing everything.
Music events were led by Sakina Noor, Dunya Lamhari, Moya, and Mike Most. After the events, we took the time to reflect with the artists.
And you could see like there was a lot that was coming up around home, memory, longing, nostalgia, that was really like quite powerful and I think necessary because it was dialogue. I think it just kind of kept it a lot more open. And so what me and Moya did is we kind of like almost like we prepared different musical clips from East Africa, starting from tradition, like traditional music from weddings, folk songs. Then we looked at faith related music or faith related expressions of song. Then we looked at fusion, so ways in which people in the East African diaspora started to fuse East African music with like hip hop or contemporary art forms. And then we kind of, but which we didn't get to do was to look at like you you know, contemporary East African artists in like London, Canada, and see how they're kind of using not they're not fusing at all. It's just trap or rap or different. And so kind of like get trying to kind of take, I guess, them on the journey to get them to see where they how they feel about things, where they stand with things. For them, actually, it was a lot of like reminiscing and memories of home.
These events created a space to explore parenting, young people, and East African cultures. Khalil Abdi founded Bristol Horn Youth Concern, supporting young people from East African backgrounds.
In our community, it's like oral community, and there is no like a meeting place that people meet and space that people feel they can come, and there's no like they're not feeling like somebody asking questions, somebody they need somebody else to help with them, but they want a space that they can turn up and then they can express what they want and how they feeling. And that is not one thing, it's not happening in Bristol in the way we are as a community. For us traditionally, it's like we have a community spaces in our country that the people gather in and come in and pass in the history or the knowledge, and then they telling stories, and then they do like they sing together.
This project revealed something simple but profound. People want to gather, to eat, make music, share stories, and not just informal programs, but a place where tradition can breathe.
Music is a way to preserve history and legacy and tradition and remember, you know what I mean? And I think for any immigrant or migration, a community of migrants, the probably number one fear is that you're going to forget your tradition. You're going to forget your culture. You're going to forget where you come from. And I think you know, the scope of this is such that it can kind of cultivate a lot of like rich dialogue, and then for also the elders to see, but what also are young Somalis or young East Africans doing now? What are the stories they want to tell, and how are they telling their stories, you know?
Raising children is never simple, and for many Somali and East African families in Bristol, it comes with unique pressures. From collective parenting traditions to shifting gender roles, from navigating services to growing concerns around autism. This is where everyday family life meets culture, faith, and change.
Your neighbor is like your family and part of the community. So if you going out, they ask you where are you going, and they question you, and then they say go back to home. When we going to school or going out, my mother telling us, oh, your neighbor is your mother, so you have to respect. If you respect me, you have to respect her. Your teacher is like your mother or your father. The children are respect their elders, or the mother and the father is the head of the family. So they decided whatever. And the way we are here now is the children have the power. In our country, the parents have the power. They decide what they want. They decide what you want. They decide. So that's how it used to be. But now it's changing. Children have more power, and that's why we are struggling. Our community, they don't understand. So if your child is doing something bad, you can't discipline. Otherwise, they can call you police, or you're gonna have problem. And that's why a lot Somali people, when they see even their children doing something bad, they don't confront because they worry about maybe social will involve. It's not about the children taken away. It's about preventing for your child to fall in and become a victim of a gang grooming or things like that. And later on, we see have more problem, drop from the school, go to the street. It's like educating to the community, always talking about this. Most of the time, we spend a lot of time talk about this issue and say nobody taking about your children. The people wanted to do the right thing to help your child before they have a power. Now they believe they have no power anymore.
It's important to acknowledge that the East African diaspora in Bristol follow a diverse range of faiths. However, Islam is the dominant religion. Islamic perspectives on music vary from conservative to more liberal beliefs.
It was quite interesting, the faith element, where, for example, the tradition of kind of like wedding song, very feminine, strong feminine power, when it came to the wedding tradition of song. But then interestingly, when we got more to more religious stuff, what we did is we played one which was like a religious song with a band, and one was a religious song with just like the vocal, because as I'm sure you're probably aware, where there can be differences of opinion with Islamic music is to do with instrumentation. And so the ones with instrumentation, there was one where she was like, oh, I used to like this I used to listen to this, but now that I'm more religious, I don't believe that the music with the band is appropriate. That's not what we listen to anymore. Whereas the stuff that was more singing but not with music, they were comfortable with that. And then there was even moments when I referred to a religious song as a song, and someone was like, no, 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 it's not a song. She said, it's not a song, it's a poem. Even though it's, from our perspective in the West, we would call that a song because it's sung like a hymn almost. But for her, she was very clear, like, song is like, almost worldly music, but this isn't regarded as a song. So that was quite interesting. So, you know, it was we definitely went on a journey with them, and I think that it was beautiful.
Studies have shown that the number of children and adults being diagnosed with autism is rising, especially among migrant communities. There is a concern that children whose parents have migrated from Somalia to Western countries appear to be at a greater risk of developing autism. Despite this need, there is evidence to show that migrant populations are less likely to access health services, particularly those supporting mental health or development disorders.
A lot of people believe that in vaccination causes this a lot. Not only some, but other minority community, they believe it's the vaccination that their children getting is causing. And people talking about their children when they are 2 years old, they playing, they communicate with the parent, they are active. By the time they got the injection, they change. And a lot of people blaming the vaccination, especially Somali, we got more children, and we have household, their children have 8 children from Somalia, and none of them have no autism. The first child they have in Bristol got autism, and then they question these things like that. It's about the medication, and a lot of people talk about. So we have a lot of discussion, and there is a families who struggling. A number of families now they give their children to the social workers because they couldn't handle it, and the children autism. And we have seen number of children being given to the council or to a care house. Those who become teenage or those who come 20s, it's very family is very difficult to manage because and they live in overcrowded houses, also contributing a lot of risky for the other children, and because that hasn't got space. So and we see that issue increasing now, and we see number of families struggling. This is something that we don't discuss and we don't talk about as the community. It's not only have the child, but also the parent is struggling because it's something new to us, and we don't know how to handle. And most of them, they hide it in the other families. They don't want to see that they have autistic children or autism child, and then they don't share the information how we can help each other or how can we support or Is there a similarity, your child and my child? There's no discussion like that, and there's no much going on in the community. And to be honest, for me, I see a lot of like colleagues who bring their children in our activities. I see how they are struggling, and I feel sorry, to be honest. And we our hands tied. There's nobody helping them, and even those who come adult autism, they have no activities.
So this project has been a real turning point for Evolve Music. In the short term, it's helped us to understand what makes community music spaces feel safe and welcoming and relevant for Somali families. It's changed how we work, from the way that we build partnerships to how we design our sessions and what happens within them. And I think the real legacy, though, is in the relationships that we've built over the last 6 months and the learning that will carry forward. This understanding will shape our future work, and the new cultural spaces that we're going to be creating with our Somali partners feel like the beginning of something really exciting.
And they say this is where we're born, this is where we grow up. We have to integrate this country. We have to be the part of the society, but we don't want to abandon our culture and our religion, our lifestyle, but we have to be part of it.
You've been listening to Community Rhythms, a journey through family, culture and music in Bristol's East African diaspora. This project was led by Evolve Music and commissioned by Bristol City Council. Huge thanks to everyone who shared their time, stories and energy, from local families to community partners, Bridges for Communities, Wellspring Settlement, Diverse Arts Network, Bristol Horn Youth Concern, Jaconi East Africa, the Swannery, Barton Hill Family Hub and the University of Bristol's East African Student Society. And gratitude to artists Sakina Noor, Mo Ya, Mike Most and Dunya Lamhari. Produced and led by Molly Rose Crossley.